Chains, Forge, and Ashes by Laurie Halse Anderson. This is a coming-of-age historical fiction taking place during the American Revolution. Chains begins with 11-year-old Isabel and her 5-year-old sister Ruth, who is simple-minded, living as slaves in Rhode Island. Their mother had died last year, and now the owner has died. Technically, these girls are free due to legal documentation that was written up by a lawyer. However, the lawyer's out of town, and the nephew of the owner comes into town for the funeral. He disregards any legal documentation, claims the girls as property, and sells them as slaves to British loyalists, the Lockharts. Traveling to New York City, Isabel and Ruth have the clothes on their back, they have each other, and Isabel has some seeds in the lining of her pocket. And I want you to think about these seeds. Let me know in the comments below what you think these seeds symbolize and why these stories were called the Seed Trilogy. When they arrive in New York City with the Lockharts, they are met by Mr. Bellingham, a patriot, who is wondering what is in the Lockharts' trunks. And while that debate is going on, Isabel sees his slave assistant, Curzon, who's about 2 years older than her. He also sees Isabel. Their paths will cross throughout the story, and the first time Curzon will search Isabel out is to ask her to spy on the Lockharts, her owners, and get information to pass to the Patriots. The plot thickens. There are several themes in this story. One of them is slavery and freedom. Isabel is fighting for her freedom from slavery, while the Patriots or the colonists are fighting for freedom from Britain. But what's ironic is that many of the colonists are fighting for freedom, but they also own slaves. We also have the theme of resilience. Resilient means being willing to take a risk and never giving up. And that is Isabel. She is strong-minded, she's clever, she speaks her mind, and often gets in trouble for it. But she needs to be persistent. She has to deal with the Battle of Brooklyn, the New York City fire, the inmates and the security guards at Bridewell Prison, as well as her owners. On that note, we're going to move to the second book, Forge, which is told from the perspective of Curzon. At this point, it's several years later, he is free and he has to earn money in order to buy food. He begins working for Trumbull. Trumbull is transporting equipment for the army up to Saratoga. Trumbull says to Curzon, "Hey, you work for me, I'll pay you." Well, Curzon works, and he works. And the days go by, the weeks go by, and he's not getting paid. Curzon has to make a decision. Does he stay? Will he eventually pay him? Or should he leave? Being a free black during this time period is very dangerous because there are people who are only out there to make money, and they will capture any black person they see and sell them into or back into slavery. To counteract this theme of betrayal, there's also a strong theme of friendship in Forge. Curzon meets Eben Woodruff in the woods, and Eben and he are about the same age, they understand each other, and Eben convinces him to join the Continental Army. And eventually they end up in Valley Forge, which is very harsh for the Continental Army. Many do not have enough clothing or blankets to keep warm. It is cold, it's icy, there's snow on the ground. They don't have shoes. Many of them are starving. There's not enough food to go around. They eat fire cake. You'll have to check out what that is. And they have to build their own shelters with minimal or improper tools and no nails. And we observe that when people don't have their basic needs met, the food, clothing, and shelter, people are uncomfortable, they're hungry, they have shorter tempers, and it leads to conflict. We've got a war going on. We don't need conflict in between the soldiers. And it's amazing how many people survived Valley Forge. Moving on to the last book, Ashes, this is again told from Isabel's perspective. It is several years later. She and Ruth have been separated, and Isabel is desperately trying to find Ruth. She and Curzon meet up again. They end up walking 1,000 miles through Lancaster, Baltimore, Richmond, to try to find Ruth. They will be taken advantage of. They will be cheated. And one interesting argument that Curzon and Isabel continue to have throughout the series is which side is better for blacks to fight on. Should they fight for the British loyalists or should they fight for the patriots? Some of the blacks say it's better to fight for the British loyalists. They have better clothing, better equipment, there's more soldiers. And they say that if the blacks fight for them, then they will free them from slavery. Other blacks say, no, you can't trust that. We're going to fight for the patriots because they are fighting for liberty for all. And then there are other blacks saying, no, you can't trust either side. They both use us, accept our help, but they don't care what happens to us. We have to look out for ourselves. Why I loved Chains, Forge, and Ashes. It's action-packed, it's suspenseful, it's detailed. It provides a slave child's perspective of the American Revolution. And that's really important because it's everyone's perspective that makes up history. Anderson also does a lot of research. She mentions famous events, famous characters, and she has quotes at the beginning of each chapter from someone who was important during that era. And this is great for all ages. Children love it. I loved it. I passed it on to my mom, who's in her 80s, and she passed it on to her friends. They all loved it. It is a great series. Chains, Forge, and Ashes by Laurie Halse Anderson. Thanks for watching. Keep reading and have a great week.